Hi boys and girls, welcome to math. Today we are going to be rounding numbers. We rounded numbers last week, I believe, and the week before, and we're doing a review. So yesterday we were subtracting, and today we're going to review rounding, and then we will be rounding with subtracting, okay? So I know it's been a kind of struggle for a lot of us. Rounding has been tough. So I need you to pay very close attention and watch what Mrs. Davis does to help you understand how to round. So today we're going to be rounding to the nearest 10 and 100. Alrighty, and I went ahead and put our place value up here because we have to know what place value is in order to round. So what is place value? Place value is the number value a number represents based on where it is in the number. So I hide this. This is my ones place. There are only 2 ones. This is equal to 2. Okay. Now this is in my tens place, and I have 6 of them. So if I had 6 tens, this represents 60. And then in my hundreds place, I have 4 hundredths. So this represents 4 hundredths. 462. Alrighty? Now, we're going to round to the nearest 10 and to the nearest 100. Alrighty, let's first round to the nearest 10. So I'm going to put a number here. I'm going to have 356 as my number. 356 as my number. Okay, and I want us to round to the nearest 10. So the first thing I want you to do if you are rounding to the nearest 10 is underline your tens place. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to underline my tens place. That's step number 1. Underline your tens place because that's what I'm rounding to. Step number 2, I'm going to go over to my neighbor's house, box in my neighbor. So, excuse me, underline my 5, walk over to my neighbor's house, and box my neighbor, which is a number 6. Okay, this number tells the number 5 what to do. So I want you to pretend that you're walking over to your neighbor, asking your neighbor for advice. So you're number 5. You're walking over to your neighbor and you're saying, hey, number 6, what should I do? I don't know what I should do. And the number 6 says, well, I am 5 or higher, so you are going to bump up. Remember when we did this? 5 or higher bumps up. 4 or lower stays the same. Well, because my neighbor is a number 6, the neighbor's telling me to bump up 1. So I'm bumping up to a 6. So my 3 is going to stay the same. This is going to turn into a 6, and you're going to say, okay, goodbye, neighbor. And 356 rounded to the nearest 10 is 360. Right? And if we look at 356, it's pretty close to 360. Okay, let's try another one rounded to the nearest 10. I'm going to say 416. 416. So I want to round to my nearest 10. So I'm going to underline my tens place. I want to walk over to my neighbor's house and put a box around my neighbor. I'm going to go to the number 6 and I'm going to say, hey, number 6, I needed some advice. What should I do? And the number 6 is going to say, well, I am greater than a 5, so you are going to bump up 1. And the number 1 is going to say, oh, okay, thank you, number 6. Let me bump up to a 2, and then goodbye, and change to a 0. So 416 rounded to the nearest 10 is 420. Why am I bumping up? Boys and girls, if your neighbor boxed in is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, you are going to bump that number up. Okay? If your neighbor is a 1, 2, 3, 4, you're just going to stay the same. You're going to stay the same. You're not going to go up. You're not going to go down. You're just going to stay the same. Okay? So let's do a couple more rounded to the nearest 10. Let's do 264. All right, so 264. Step number 1, underline my tens place because that's what I'm rounding. Step number 1, underline my tens place. Step number 2, walk over to your neighbor's house and box in your neighbor and ask your neighbor for the advice. Hey, number 4, what am I supposed to do here? I don't know what to do. The number 4 is going to tell you, well, I am lower than a 5, so hey, number 6, you're going to just stay the same. You're not going to do anything. You're going to rest. You're going to chill out. So, number 6 says, okay, I'm going to stay the same. Bye, neighbor. And you say goodbye to your neighbor and keep it a 0 to hold that place value. All right, so this is how we round to the nearest 10 when we are rounding numbers. It is very important. If your neighbor, your box number, boys and girls, is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, you're going to bump up your underlined number. Alrighty? If your neighbor, your box number is 1, 2, 3, or 4, you're telling your neighbor to chill, hang out, rest, don't worry about it. And they're going to stay the same. Okay, one more, and then we're going to move on to hundreds. If I have 619, and I want to round to the nearest tens, what is my first step? Step number 1, underline your tens place. Okay, I have a 1 in the tens place. Step number 2, walk over to your neighbor, box that number, and say, hey, number 9, what am I supposed to do? What do I do here? The number 9 is going to say, oh, hey, number 1, I am a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, so you're going to bump up. So my number 1 is going to turn into a number 2 and say, goodbye, neighbor. So 619 rounded to the nearest 10 is 620. If you have any questions, let me know. The next video we are going to be rounding to the nearest 100. See you later.